Hey guys, this is Moses from Solframe, and I'm back with another set of tips and tricks in spreadsheets. But today we're going to use Google Sheets instead of Excel. And the reason for that is, as you can see up here, we're going to use the really powerful Google query function. This is a sheet that I've already built before, and I'll make it available in a link down below somewhere. Now, all it is literally it's a dynamic sheet that takes data from card purchase and cash purchase and merges them together. Now, why this came about is because one time when I was working, I had two odd data sets, meaning it was purchases. Now, some of those purchases were in the form of a card, and that card was automatically generating data. It was a prepaid card. And so that data was coming in a really long format. There were at least 15, 16 columns. I've picked a few of them and kept it here. But on the other hand, there were some purchases in cash, and the information wasn't coming in, whether it was due to laziness of people or just the fact that we weren't really interested in some of the data. So it came in this format where we had less columns to deal with. So in the end, what that meant was that when I tried to put a report together dynamically, it was kind of messy. And the way I sorted that was using query and arrays. So what's an array? Let's just clear this entire thing. And let me just undo formatting here and unfreeze. Or no, we'll keep a freeze because it's going to be useful. So I'm just going to keep item here. So what is an array? An array is in Google Sheets is basically now if I type 1, 2, 3, 4 with a comma in between, let's just have a look at that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we get 1, 2, 3, 4. Now if I change this to a semicolon, 3, 4, it comes vertically. Now this seems really interesting. This is a great way to organize data. If I do 1, comma 2, and then I put a semicolon, and then I do 3, comma 4, and I make sure I close it, we have a square, a grid. So how does this help us with queries? Well, if we take our query, I'm not going to cover how a query works, but we'll just take query. We'll put our data, card, purchase. The single quote is required because there's a space in the sheet name. There are 8 columns, and I know it's A to H, so that's why A to H here. Then comma and select all. If I'm doing select all, technically it's not really required for me to type it, but it's a good habit to get into. The colors you can ignore, it's coming because of conditional formatting. Okay, so now I have all my data coming nicely. Perfect for this. Now if I put cash purchase instead, A to H, because same. There are 3 blank columns and we have 5 columns with data. So we can just go back and then it should be pretty obvious. Oh, sorry. If I just open my array here and just merge one on top of the other, and if I change this to cash purchase, now instead of A to H, I'm going to give A to E because that's where the data is. And well, hang on, if we go back there, you can see there's an error coming. An array literal was missing values for one or more rows. What does this mean? Basically, we're trying to merge 8 columns with 5 columns, and Sheets is not having it. If I increase this to include the blank columns, you'll see it works perfectly fine. Oh, hang on, what's going on here? Well, that's actually because there are lots of blank rows because we said A to H, which means it's searching the entire worksheet there. So how do we counteract that? Well, we'll just put in a where A is not null. Basically means wherever A is not empty. This could be any of the columns which has data inside it. is not null. And then we come down, you'll see, great, one on top of the other, it's come. So now with this, what is the problem? I realistically, I want the columns to be one on top of the other. One way to do this is to shrink my first data set. But when I was facing this problem initially, I needed to have a look at all the data in one report. So how did I deal with that? It's just a really quick fix. Instead of doing select all, we will have all the columns, but we'll manually position them. And to do that, we'll just go A, B, which is our first two, serial number and date. Then location is not there in the C position, so I'll put my blank column. Then C, which is my location. Then after that, I want another two blank columns, which is my G and H. And then D and E. So if we come back down, you can see my columns have now been shifted to the location that I want them in. Great. So now I've merged two disparate query sets with an array. So really that's about all that you need. And from this, you can build up a lot. But for the sake of this video, let me just go a few steps further. First of all, I need to filter apple, oranges, bananas. I want to know for all the items, for each specific item, what were the purchases. So let's just select apple here. To do that, we'll just come up here. Oh, yep, let's just ignore that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Control Enter to make this a bit more readable. And those of you familiar with programming, this is essentially the same thing you do there. That you just keep separate lines. If you see, it's made no change here whatsoever, but it makes it really readable. So what am I going to do? First of all, where A is not null, I'm going to add an AND. And I want my item column. My item column is G here. G is equal to, now pay close attention. Single quote twice, double quote twice, ampersand twice. Why did I do this? Basically, the single quote on the outside is telling Google Sheets that this is a string. The double quotes is breaking this initial double quote here. It's from here to here, and then from here to here is building the query string, right? And then the and symbol is basically a way to join the strings together with a cell reference. And in this case, my cell reference is B1. If I do this, you'll see now only apples are visible. Okay, now I want to do this for the next cash purchases as well. So I can copy paste this, right? That's what you'd think. Where? So A is not now. Oh, sorry, I can just copy paste it at the end there. And we'll come down and hang on, there's nothing here. And most of you must have guessed that's because it's not column G in this one, even though it's here. This data set, we're actually looking at column number D. A, B, C, D. So I just change this to D. And there you go. Now we can see all the apples that were purchased by card and how many were purchased by cash. Obviously, you can extend this by adding multiple where conditions, right? So, final thing that I'm going to show. Obviously, after this, it would make sense to have a subtotal. So how do we get a subtotal out of this? We'll basically just add an array below this. Of course, one of the things you have to remember is it's not enter, it's control enter. It doesn't matter how many times I do this, I still make the same mistake. So we'll say that we want another array inside this, okay? First of all, the first cell, we want to call it subtotal. And we'll say card. Then we'll put a comma, and we want blanks until we get right to the last column. And so let's just count that I did this right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And here, we want to sum, but sum what? Well, we'll say query, and then we'll just literally select all of this And all we'll do is instead of saying select all, we only want the H column. Great. And if we hit enter here, we're getting an error. Why are we getting an error? Because I've missed out my semicolon. Now you can see it's telling me, well, you've screwed up and you've done something wrong. So let's just have a look at it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, hang on. It wasn't meant to be query. It was meant to be sum of the query. As in, basically, it's going to build up the array and then just add all the values together. And then here we go. If we come down, we have a nice subtotal coming and the amount is there. Nice. Same thing we can do for here. After this, we want, again, control enter. Subtotal, and we'll call this subtotal cache. And then we'll change this to, we'll copy paste this formula so that I don't have to waste time on it. And then change this to select only E. And of course, we'll get an error because there's no need for a semicolon afterwards. And there we go. So now we have two subtotals. So as a small exercise for yourselves, have a look at building a total column at the end of this. And how that should look, I'll just come back. And for those of you who don't know how to use version history, you can come back and come here. I'm going to only show the named version histories. And this is where my final one is. I'm going to restore this version. And here we go. There we go. Total, like this. You can figure out how to add this yourself. And the sheet is available down below. Thanks for listening. I hope you have a great weekend and following week. And do check out our other videos, courses, content. There's a lot. And our goal is to make sure you learn. So have a nice day and take care.